And the long-term forecast for the summer fire season, obviously still unknown, although we do know from this weekend that in the short term, conditions aren't great. Denver 7's Russell Haythorne is live with more on the warning from fire officials and state climatologists. And Russell, it's a beautiful day out there, but it is dry.
Yeah, and obviously the upside to this kind of weather is that it is gorgeous out here. The downside is this: dry grasses, weeds, and shrubs. Case in point, this past weekend, South Metro Fire tripled down on its firefighting efforts, meaning they had triple the apparatus, the fire trucks, they had triple the personnel, because they now know how catastrophic grass fires can be. This weekend's fire hitting too close to home yet again.
The NCAR fire was very triggering for a lot of people who just experienced the Marshall fire.
Assistant state climatologist Becky Bollinger says, unfortunately, this is likely a sign of things to come.
Just because we've had recent precipitation, there is not a complete recovery of that drought. So there are still a lot of dry fuels out there.
According to state estimates, the urban corridor west of DIA is 37% drier than it was 20 years ago, around the turn of the century.
We did come out of the 1980s and 1990s as being relatively wet time periods, and since then we have not had a really significant wet period.
The weather doesn't look at the calendar. So for the rest of us, where it may feel like this is spring and we shouldn't have wildfire, unfortunately, that's just how it is along the Colorado Front Range. In some ways along the Colorado Front Range, we have to look at this as a year-round fire season.
Eric Hurst with South Metro Fire and other experts say the reality is the grassland urban interface and most living along the I-25 urban corridor are nearly as susceptible to fire as those living in the wildland urban interface in the mountains and foothills.
And grass fires spread extremely quickly. In general, what we worry about with neighborhoods is what we call ember cast, and that's when you see lots of sparks just flying through the air, and they're looking for a place to land.
Hurst suggests a few simple mitigation tips within 5 feet of your home. That includes swapping out mulch for rocks, gravel, or pavers, moving patio furniture, firewood, and play sets away from your home, and relocating trash cans and other combustibles.
We don't want people to be fearful of living here. We just have to know that we're living with fire in our environment.
And Bollinger says current weather patterns aren't exactly favorable to the fire forecast.
A lot of the recent fires have really opened our eyes that it's essentially 365 days a year. And unfortunately, it's something that we're going to continue to experience.
These grasses are called 1 to 10 hour fuels, meaning just 1 to 10 hours after they receive moisture, they become a fire hazard. That's much different, obviously, than the trees in the forest, which take hundreds of hours to dry out. And with new development encroaching on grasslands all the time, the state climatologist's office says that catastrophic fires will become more and more common. We're live tonight. Russell Haythorne, back to you guys.
That is a harsh reality. Thank you, Russ.